The bullet missed Lucien's head by 3 inches. He felt the heat of it pass his ear as he tackled Tyra to the bottom of the speedboat. Boat driver yanked the wheel hard right, the boat nearly capsizing as another shot punched through the fiberglass hull. Sniper second boat 200 yards back, boat driver shouted over the engine roar. Lucien covered Tyra's body with his own as bullets tore through the air above them. Water sprayed into the boat from the hole in the hull. They were taking on water fast. "We're not going to make it to the FBI meeting point," boat driver yelled. "We're sitting ducks out here." Lucien's mind raced. The FBI rendezvous was still 10 minutes away at the South Street seaport. They'd be dead in 2. He scanned the shoreline, looking for options, and spotted it. The old Brooklyn Navy Yard, abandoned warehouses, and dry docks stretching along the waterfront. There. Head for the Navy Yard. Boat driver didn't hesitate. He gunned the engine, zigzagging as more shots rang out. The boat lurched violently as another bullet hit the outboard motor. Black smoke began pouring from the engine. "We're losing power," boat driver shouted. The boat was slowing, the second vessel closing the distance. Lucien could make out 3 figures now, the sniper and 2 others armed with automatic weapons. Malenkov wasn't taking chances. "Can you swim?" Lucien asked a man. Her eyes went wide. "In December in the East River, are you insane? It's that or get shot. Your choice." The Navy Yard docks were 50 yards away. The engine coughed, sputtered, died. They were coasting now. Momentum carrying them forward, but not fast enough. "On 3, we jump and swim for those pilings," Lucien said, pointing to the old dock supports. "Stay low in the water. You good?" Boat driver pulled his gun. "I'll hold them off. Buy you time. Boss, you're no good to the organization, Dad. Get to shore. Make your deal with the feds. Take down Malenkov. I'll catch up." There was no time to argue. The second boat was 30 yards away and closing. Lucien grabbed a man's hand. Deep breath. 3, 2, 1. They hit the freezing water and Lucien's entire body seized. The cold was a living thing, crushing his chest, stopping his breath. Next to him, Tyra gasped and went under. Lucien grabbed her, pulling her back up. "Swim," he shouted. Behind them, gunfire erupted. Boat driver returning fire, keeping Malenkov's men occupied. Lucien and Tyra kicked hard for the pilings, the cold water making every movement agony. Lucien's expensive suit felt like it weighed 100 pounds. They reached the pilings just as boat driver's gun ran dry. Lucien heard the distinctive sound of automatic weapons fire, then silence. He didn't look back, couldn't look back. "Boat driver," the man gasped, trembling. "Keep moving." Lucien's voice was flat dead. He pulled her through the maze of pilings toward a rusted ladder leading up to the abandoned dock. Behind them, he heard the second boat's engine idling, voices speaking Russian. They were hunting. Lucien and Tyra climbed the ladder, their clothes streaming water, teeth chattering violently. The Navy Yard stretched before them, a graveyard of industrial buildings and forgotten machinery. Lucien pulled Tyra into the shadows of the nearest warehouse just as searchlights from the boat swept across the dock. Inside the warehouse, they pressed against the wall trying to control their breathing. Lucien could hear boots on the dock above. Men spreading out to search. At least 4 of them, maybe more. "Your phone," Tyra whispered. "Call the FBI." Lucien pulled out his phone. The screen was black, dead, water damage. He checked a man's purse. She'd lost it when they jumped. They were alone, unarmed, hunted, with no way to call for help. "We need to find a phone," Lucien said. "There's got to be a security office or something in this place." They moved deeper into the warehouse, their footsteps echoing despite their attempts at stealth. The building was massive, filled with rusted machinery and stacked crates covered in decades of dust. Moonlight filtered through broken windows high above, creating strange shadows. A door slammed somewhere behind them. Voices in Russian getting closer. Lucien and Tyra ran, weaving through the maze of equipment. They found a stairwell leading down into the basement level. Lucien pulled Tyra through, closing the door silently behind them. The basement was pitch black. Lucien used his lighter for illumination, the small flame revealing a long corridor lined with offices. They tried each door until one opened. An old foreman's office with a desk, filing cabinets, and most importantly, a landline phone on the wall. Lucien grabbed it. Dead. Of course, it was dead. The Navy Yard had been closed for years. Now what? Tyra asked, her whole body shaking from cold and fear. Lucien found a maintenance closet with old coveralls and work jackets. Get out of those wet clothes. You'll die of hypothermia before Malenkov's men find us. They stripped quickly. No modesty left between them, changing into the dusty but dry work clothes. In the darkness, Lucien was hyper-aware of a man's presence, her breathing, the soft sounds of fabric moving. Lucien, she said softly. Boat driver, is he? Probably. Lucien's voice cracked. He bought us time. We can't waste it. Tyra moved closer to him in the darkness. I'm sorry. This is all my fault if I'd never. Don't. We both made choices that led here. No point in blame now. So, what's the plan? Lucien thought hard. They were trapped in the Navy Yard with Russian hitmen hunting them. No phone, no weapons, no way to contact the FBI. But they had one advantage. Lucien knew this area. Years ago, before he'd risen to power, he'd run shipments through the Navy Yard. He knew the layout, the exits, the places to hide. There's a security station on the north side, Lucien said. Used to have radio equipment for coordinating dock operations. If any of it still works, we can call for help. And if it doesn't, then we steal a car and drive straight to FBI headquarters ourselves. They waited in the darkness for 20 minutes, listening to the searchers move through the warehouse above. Eventually, the sounds faded. The Russians were expanding their search to other buildings. Lucien and Tyra emerged from the basement carefully. The warehouse was empty now, moonlight painting everything silver and shadow. They moved to a side door leading out to the shipyard. Outside, the Navy Yard stretched before them like a ghost town. Massive dry docks, crane towers reaching toward the sky, administrative buildings slowly collapsing from neglect. In the distance, Lucien could see flashlight beams moving between structures. Stay close, Lucien whispered. Move from cover to cover. Don't run unless I run. They crossed the open ground in a crouched sprint, reaching the shelter of a massive crane. From there, they worked their way north, using abandoned equipment and buildings as cover. Every sound made Lucien's heart race, the wind through broken windows, rats scurrying through debris, metal creaking and groaning. They were halfway to the security station when they heard it. A voice speaking English this time, not Russian. FBI, anyone in the area, make yourself known. Lucien and Tyra froze. It could be a trap. Malenkov's men using a trick to flush them out. But it could also be real. The FBI finally arriving after hearing the gunfire. Lucien made a decision. He stood up, hands raised. We're here. Lucien and Tyra. Don't shoot. Flashlights swung toward them, blinding in the darkness. Lucien squinted against the glare, unable to see who was behind the lights. On your knees, hands behind your head, both of you. They complied. Footsteps approached. Lucien's heart pounded. This was it. Either salvation or execution. The flashlight lowered, revealing the face behind it. FBI agent, exactly as she'd looked in the photos boat driver had shown Lucien. Mid-30s, sharp eyes, an expression that gave nothing away. Well, she said, this is certainly not how I expected our first meeting to go. Where's the rest of your party? Dead, Lucien said flatly. Boat driver, my associate, killed by Malenkov's men in the river. They're still hunting us. At least 4 hostiles in the area, probably more. FBI agent pulled out her radio. All units, we have multiple armed hostiles in the Navy Yard. Converge on my position. She looked back at Lucien and Tyra. You two are under FBI protection now, but we're doing this my way. Understood. We had a deal. Lucien said, we had a conversation. The deal comes after you give me everything on Malenkov. Chin smiled coldly. And I mean everything. Every shipment, every contact, every dirty cop on his payroll. You hold back anything, and I'll make sure both of you spend the rest of your lives in prison. That clear enough? Lucien looked at Tyra. She nodded slightly. What choice did they have? Crystal clear. Lucien said. Good. Now let's get you somewhere safe. Before. The shot came from nowhere. FBI agent's body jerked backward, a red bloom spreading across her shoulder. She hit the ground hard as chaos erupted. "Sniper, take cover." One of the FBI agents screamed. Lucien grabbed Tyra and dove behind a concrete barrier as bullets ripped through the air. The FBI agents scattered, returning fire into the darkness. Within minutes, Malenkov's men were retreating, outnumbered and outgunned by the federal response team that had been positioned around the perimeter. FBI agent was on her feet, wincing and holding her shoulder. "Flesh wound, I'll live." She looked at Lucien and Tyra with cold eyes. "You two just became the FBI's most valuable assets. Let's go." They were loaded into armored SUVs and driven to a safe house in Westchester, a nondescript colonial house in a quiet suburban neighborhood. The kind of place where organized crime bosses and their girlfriends would never think to hide. Inside, FBI agent, her arm now in a sling, sat across from them at a dining room table with recording equipment set up. Two other agents stood by the door. "Here's how this works," FBI agent said. "You give me everything on Malenkov, every shipment, every contact, every operation. In exchange, we make Miss Tyra's Atlanta situation disappear, and you both get new identities through WTSC." "What about Kiana?" Tyra demanded. "They have her in Atlanta. She could be dead by now. Atlanta field office is moving on that as we speak. We'll have her in protective custody within the hour." FBI agent leaned forward. "But understand something. Once you enter this program, your old lives are over completely. You can't contact anyone from your past. Can't go back to New York. You'll be relocated somewhere random. Maybe Kansas, maybe Oregon. Doesn't matter. You'll have new names, new backgrounds, and you'll spend the rest of your lives being nobody." Lucien felt the weight of it. Everything he'd built gone. The Dragon Casino, his captains, his reputation, all of it erased like it never existed. "And if we say no," he asked, "then I arrest you both right now. Lucien, you're looking at RICO charges that'll put you away for 20 years minimum. Tyra, Atlanta wants you for murder. Your choice." Tyra reached under the table and took Lucien's hand. Her fingers were cold, trembling slightly. "We'll take the deal," Lucien said quietly. FBI agent nodded. "Smart. We'll start debriefing tomorrow morning. For tonight, you'll stay here under protection. There are bedrooms upstairs. Agent Morrison will show you." She stood to leave, then paused. "One more thing, no physical contact between you two until we're sure neither of you is compromised. Separate rooms." After she left, Agent Morrison, a tired-looking woman in her 40s, led them upstairs. Bathrooms between the two bedrooms. There's clothes in the closets that should fit. Kitchen stocked if you're hungry. Don't try to leave. There are agents outside. She left them in the hallway. Lucien and Tyra stood there suddenly awkward. So much had happened in the last 12 hours. Boat driver was dead. They'd nearly died. And now they were being told to start over as completely different people. "I should shower," Tyra said quietly. "I still smell like the East River." "Yeah, me too." But neither of them moved. They just stood there looking at each other, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them. Finally, Tyra stepped closer. "Lucien, I need you to know something. Whatever happens, wherever they send us, I don't regret any of it. Meeting you, being with you, even all of this. For the first time in 3 years, I felt like I could breathe. Like I wasn't just surviving, but actually living." Lucien cupped her face with his hand. "I spent so long being alone, convinced I'd always be alone because of my situation. Then you walked into my life and made me think maybe I wasn't broken. Maybe I just hadn't found the right person. You're not broken, Lucien. We'll see about that." He kissed her forehead gently. "Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be long." The man went into her room. Lucien went into his, but sleep was impossible. He lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. Boat driver's sacrifice, the gunfight, FBI agents' cold bargaining, the life he was about to lose. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, he heard his door open softly. Tyra slipped inside, closing it behind her. She was wearing an oversized FBI t-shirt and sweatpants, her hair loose around her shoulders. Can't sleep? Lucien asked. Every time I close my eyes, I see guns, water, blood. She moved to the bed and sat on the edge. I keep thinking about Kiana. What if the FBI doesn't get to her in time? What if Malenkov's people? They'll get to her. FBI agent needs her alive to make the deal stick. You really trust her? I trust that she wants Malenkov more than she wants us. That's enough. Tyra was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Can I stay here just to sleep? I don't want to be alone right now." Lucien moved over, making room. Tyra lay down next to him, careful not to touch him too much, respecting the boundaries FBI agent had set. But after a few minutes, Lucien felt her hand find his under the blanket. They lay there in the darkness, fingers intertwined, just breathing together. "Lucien," Tyra whispered. "Yeah, when this is all over, when we're in some random town with new names and new lives, do you think we'll make it as a couple? I mean, when everything that brought us together is gone." Lucien thought about it. "I don't know, but I want to try if you do." "I do." She squeezed his hand. "I'm terrified, but I do." They fell asleep like that, fully clothed on top of the covers, holding hands like teenagers, afraid to go further. Lucien woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of coffee. Tyra was gone. He found her downstairs in the kitchen with Agent Morrison, both drinking coffee and talking quietly. They stopped when Lucien entered. "There's a situation," Morrison said without preamble. "Kiana Webb is safe. Atlanta office got to her before Malenkov's people did, but there's been a development." "What kind of development?" Lucien asked. "Kiana wants to talk to Miss Tyra face to face. She's refusing to cooperate with our investigation until she does. Tyra set down her coffee cup when she's being flown up here today. Should arrive this afternoon." Morrison looked between them. "FBI agent wants to use the meeting. See if Kiana can provide additional information about what happened 3 years ago. The more we know about Darius Webb's FBI cooperation, the better we can bury the murder warrant." "So, I'm bait," Tyra said flatly. "You're a witness who needs to reconcile with another witness." "There's a difference, is there?" Morrison's expression softened slightly. "Look, I get it. This is hard, but the alternative is you go back to Atlanta to face murder charges. This way, everybody wins. Kiana gets closure. You get immunity. We get our case against Malenkov." After Morrison left, Tyra turned to Lucien. "I haven't seen Kiana in 3 years. Last time we spoke, I was covered in her brother's blood, begging her to help me disappear. What am I supposed to say to her now? The truth. That you survived. That you're trying to make things right. I killed her brother, Lucien. You killed a man who was going to kill you. There's a difference." Lucien moved closer. "You're not the same scared 19-year-old who ran from Atlanta. You're stronger now, smarter, and you're not alone." Tyra leaned against him, and Lucien wrapped his arms around her, feeling the tension in her body slowly release. They stood like that for a long moment, just holding each other. "What do you think happens after all this?" the man asked quietly. "After the debriefings and the testimonies and the relocations, do we just live, get jobs, pretend to be normal? I don't know what normal looks like anymore, but maybe that's okay. Maybe we get to define it ourselves." Lucien Knox's secret romantic. She pulled back to look at him, a small smile on her lips. "Who would have thought? Don't tell anyone. I've got a reputation to maintain." "What reputation you're about to become?" "I don't know. Jim Patterson from Desmos or something." Despite everything, Lucien laughed. "Jim Patterson. Hey, they're giving us new identities. Jim's a perfectly good name." "I am not being called Jim." "Fine. How about Brad or Chad? Very suburban dad names." They spent the rest of the morning like that, making dark jokes about their future lives, trying to pretend that everything was going to be okay. Agent Morrison brought them lunch, sandwiches, and chips, and updated them on Kiana's arrival time. At 3:00 p.m., a black SUV pulled into the driveway. Through the window, Lucien watched 2 FBI agents escort a young woman up the walkway. She had the same bone structure as Tyra, the same careful way of moving. Kiana Webb looked tired, scared, but alive. Morrison brought her into the living room. The 2 women stared at each other for a long moment. Then Kiana spoke, her voice cracking. You look good, Tyra. Better than I thought you would. Kiana, Tyra's voice broke. I'm so sorry for everything. For Darius, for putting you in danger, for stop. Kiana held up her hand. I didn't come here for apologies. I came here because the FBI said you needed help and because despite everything, despite what happened that night, I never blamed you. Darius made his choices. He lived that life. And when he tried to kill you, she took a shaky breath. You did what you had to do to survive. I understood that then. I understand it now. Tyra's eyes filled with tears. You helped me disappear. Told the police it was self-defense. I never got to thank you. You're thanking me now. Kiana looked at Lucien. This him. The man you're running with. This is Lucien. Lucien. This is Kiana. Kiana studied Lucien with sharp eyes. You love her. The question caught Lucien off guard. He could have deflected, made a joke, kept things casual, but looking at Kiana's direct gaze, he knew she deserved the truth. Yes, he said simply, I do. Kiana nodded slowly. Then you protect her because if you don't, if you hurt her, if you let her down. I don't care about witness protection or new identities. I will find you. Clear. Crystal clear. Good. Kiana turned back to Tyra. Now the FBI wants me to tell them everything about Darius and his deal, and they want you there when I do it. You ready for that? Tyra glanced at Lucien. He nodded encouragingly. She looked back at Kiana. I'm ready. FBI agent appeared with her recording equipment. And for the next 3 hours, Kiana told them everything. How Darius had gotten in deep with the disciples. How the FBI had approached him after he was caught on a wire discussing a murder. How he'd taken the deal to save himself, planning to testify against the gang's leadership. But he got scared. Kiana said started drinking more, using more. He knew the disciples would kill him if they found out. That's when he started getting paranoid about Tyra. Thought she might know something, might tell someone. He wasn't thinking straight anymore. The night it happened, FBI agent prompted, tell us about that night. Kiana's voice dropped. Darius called me around 8 p.m. said he'd made a terrible mistake. Said he tried to fix a problem. He was crying, panicking. I drove to their apartment and found Tyra gone, Darius dead. I knew what must have happened. Tyra had always been smart, always been a survivor. If she'd killed Darius, it was because he'd forced her to. FBI agent leaned forward. And you told the police it was self-defense. I told them the truth, that my brother had been violent before, that Tyra had called me weeks earlier, scared, saying Darius was acting strange. I gave them enough to make them question the murder narrative. Without Tyra's testimony and without me pushing for prosecution, the DA couldn't make a case. Why didn't you tell them about the FBI deal? Kiana's laugh was bitter. Because the FBI abandoned my brother. They set him up to testify, put a target on his back, and then offered zero protection. He was a dead man either way. The least I could do was make sure Tyra didn't go down for defending herself. FBI agent looked satisfied. This is exactly what we needed. Ms. Webb, your testimony combined with Ms. Tyra gives us enough to formally request the Atlanta DA drop all charges with the FBI's recommendation. It should go through within the week. After Kiana left, escorted to her own safe house across town, Tyra collapsed onto the couch, emotionally drained. I need a drink, she said. Morrison said, no alcohol. Lucien reminded her. Morrison can bite me, but she didn't move. Just sat there staring at nothing. 3 years I carried that guilt. 3 years of thinking I was a murderer and hearing Kiana say she never blamed me. It doesn't erase what happened, but it helps. Lucien finished. Yeah, it helps. FBI agent returned later with news. Atlanta DA has agreed to drop the warrant pending final review of the evidence. Should be official by end of week. Which means, Mr. Lucien, Miss Tyra, you're free to begin your new lives. We'll start the relocation process tomorrow. Until then, get some rest. You've earned it. That night, Lucien and Tyra sat on the back porch of the safe house, wrapped in blankets against the November cold. Above them, stars were visible, something you never saw in Manhattan. You ever think about what you'd do if you could start over? Tyra asked. Like if none of the past mattered and you could be anyone. Honestly, I'd want to be boring. Normal job, normal life. Maybe coach Little League or something. Tyra laughed. You coaching Little League? Why not? I'm good with strategy. You're good with organized crime strategy. That's different. Still strategy. Lucien looked at her. What about you? I'd finish nursing school, work in a hospital, save lives instead of running from death. She was quiet for a moment. Think they'll let us do that, the FBI, or are we going to be stuck in dead-end jobs to maintain our covers? I think, Lucien said slowly, that we get to decide who we become next. Clean slate. No past, no reputation, just us. Just us, Tyra repeated like she was testing how it felt. Then she turned to him, her eyes serious. Lucien, there's something we need to talk about. Something we've been avoiding. Lucien's stomach tightened. He knew what was coming. Your complication. Tyra continued, we're about to start a whole new life together, and we haven't even, we don't know if we're physically compatible, and I need to know before we commit to this. Before we disappear into witness protection as a couple, I need to know if this is going to work. Lucien felt heat rise in his face. The man. I'm serious, Lucien. I care about you more than I've cared about anyone in years, but I'm also practical. If this is something that's going to cause problems, I'd rather know now than discover it 6 months into hiding in Kansas or wherever they send us. She wasn't wrong. Lucien had been avoiding this exact conversation, terrified of the moment when she'd finally see the reality of his situation and decide it was too much. Tomorrow, he said quietly, after the debriefings are done, and we know Kiana is safe and the warrants are dropped. Tomorrow night, we'll address it together. Okay. Tyra studied his face, then nodded. Okay, tomorrow night. They went inside, separating into their respective rooms as per Morrison's rules. But as Lucien lay in bed, he couldn't stop thinking about tomorrow, about the moment of truth that would either bring them closer or tear them apart forever. In the room next door, Tyra was thinking the exact same thing, her heart racing with a mixture of anticipation and fear. Tomorrow night, everything would change. One way or another. The next day crawled by like torture. Lucien spent 6 hours in a windowless room with FBI agent and 2 federal prosecutors going through every detail of his organization's operations, bank accounts in the Caymans, shell corporations in Delaware, the names of dirty cops on his payroll, shipment routes through the port, everything. With each revelation, Lucien felt pieces of his old life crumbling away. By the time they finished, there was nothing left of Lucien Knox, the crime boss. He was just a man with information, buying his way into a future he couldn't yet imagine. Tyra's debriefing was shorter, but no less intense. They made her walk through the night Darius died in excruciating detail, over and over, looking for inconsistencies. By the time FBI agent finally let her go, she looked exhausted and hollowed out. They met in the safe house kitchen around 6 p.m. Morrison had left dinner in the oven, lasagna that neither of them had much appetite for. They picked at their food in silence, the weight of the evening ahead pressing down on them. Atlanta officially dropped the warrant an hour ago, Tyra said finally. FBI agent told me right before I left. It's done. I'm free. That's good, Lucien said. That's really good. Yeah, but she didn't sound happy. She sounded terrified. After dinner, they cleaned up together, moving around each other carefully in the small kitchen. Morrison had left for the night. Apparently, they were trusted enough now not to need a babysitter. The agents outside were still there, but inside the house, they were alone. Tyra headed upstairs first. I'm going to shower. Take my time. You should too. Lucien understood what she wasn't saying. Get ready. Prepare yourself. Tonight we find out if this can actually work. He showered in the hall bathroom. The hot water did nothing to calm his racing heart. He'd been with women before, obviously. But this felt different. This wasn't just sex. This was the moment that would determine whether he and Tyra had a future together or were just 2 damaged people who'd temporarily found comfort in each other. Lucien dried off and pulled on clean sweatpants and a t-shirt the FBI had provided. His hands were shaking. 30 years old, and he felt like a virgin on prom night. He went to his room and sat on the edge of the bed, trying to calm his breathing. A few minutes later, there was a soft knock on his door. "Come in," he said, his voice rougher than intended. Tyra entered wearing a tank top and pajama shorts, her hair still damp from the shower. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it, looking as nervous as Lucien felt. "So," she said, "here we are. Here we are." Neither of them moved. The air between them felt electric, charged with anticipation and fear. "We don't have to do this tonight," Lucien said. "If you're not ready." "I am ready. I'm scared, but I'm ready." Tyra pushed off from the door and crossed to the bed, sitting down next to him. "I've been thinking about this all day, about what you said, that every woman has walked away. And I need you to understand something, Lucien. I'm not them. I'm not some delicate flower who's going to panic and run. I'm a nursing student. I understand anatomy. I understand that bodies come in all shapes and sizes, and that with patience and communication, most physical challenges can be worked through." "This isn't most challenges," Lucien said. "Then show me." She turned to face him fully, her eyes steady and determined. "No more mystery. No more anxiety. Just show me what we're dealing with, and we'll figure it out together, like adults." Lucien felt his throat go dry. This was it. The moment he'd been dreading since the night they met. He stood up slowly, his heart hammering so hard he could hear it in his ears. "Okay," he said quietly. "But I need you to promise me something. If it's too much, if you want to stop, you tell me immediately. No pushing through because you think you should. No trying to be brave, just honesty. Can you do that?" "I can do that." Lucien took a deep breath and hooked his thumbs into the waistband of his sweatpants. For a moment, he couldn't move. 3 years of rejection, humiliation, and loneliness had taught him to protect himself, to never be this vulnerable again. But Tyra wasn't just any woman. She'd killed to survive. She trusted him with her darkest secrets. She deserved the same trust in return. He pulled down his sweatpants. Tyra's eyes widened. She stared for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Lucien felt shame wash over him, the familiar urge to cover himself, to run. Then Tyra did something unexpected. She laughed, not cruelly, but with something like relief. "Okay," she said, standing up to face him. "Okay, I see what we're working with." "You're laughing," Lucien said, his voice tight with embarrassment. "I'm laughing because I've been terrified all day that it was going to be something medically impossible. Like, I don't know, a third leg or something. But this," she gestured, "this is just biology. Extreme biology, but still biology. 7 women didn't think it was just biology. 7 women weren't me." Tyra stepped closer, her expression softening. "Lucien, I'm not going to lie. You're significantly above average. Like, significantly. But it's not impossible. It's going to require patience, preparation, and probably some supplies we don't have right now. But it's not impossible." Lucien felt something loosen in his chest. "You're not leaving." "I'm not leaving." She reached out and took his hand. "But we're also not rushing this. Not tonight. Tonight, we're just going to be close, touch each other, learn each other's bodies without the pressure of penetration." "Okay, okay." Lucien pulled his sweatpants back up, feeling oddly relieved and disappointed at the same time. Tyra pulled him toward the bed. They lay down facing each other, and for a moment, they just looked at each other. Then Tyra reached out and traced her fingers along Lucien's jaw, down his neck, across his collarbone. "You're beautiful," she said softly. "Has anyone ever told you that?" "People have said a lot of things about my looks. Beautiful was never one of them." "Well, you are sharp and dangerous and beautiful." Her hand moved lower across his chest, feeling the muscles beneath his shirt. "I want to know all of you, Lucien. Not just your body, but everything. Your fears, your dreams, the things that make you laugh." Lucien captured her hand and brought it to his lips, kissing her palm. "I want that, too. I want to know why you scrunch up your nose when you're thinking hard. Why you always order water instead of alcohol. What you dream about when you sleep." "I dream about being free," Tyra whispered. "Really free. Not just physically safe, but emotionally free. Free to love without fear. Free to trust without worrying about betrayal. Free to just exist." "I dream about being wanted," Lucien admitted. Not for my power or my money or what I can do for people, just wanted for who I am. All of me, including the parts that are complicated and difficult. I want you, Tyra said, and kissed him. The kiss started gentle but quickly deepened. Lucien pulled Tyra closer, feeling the heat of her body against his. His hand slid under her tank top, feeling the smoothness of her skin, the curve of her waist. Tyra made a small sound in the back of her throat and pressed closer. They explored each other slowly, learning the topography of skin and muscle, finding sensitive spots that made breath catch. Lucien kissed along Tyra's neck, her collarbone, the scar on her ribcage. Tyra's hands moved over Lucien's back, his shoulders, his chest. Can I? Tyra asked, her hand moving lower. Lucien nodded, unable to speak. Tyra's hand slipped beneath his sweatpants, and Lucien gasped at the contact. Her touch was confident, curious, not afraid. This is going to work, she murmured against his neck. Maybe not tonight, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually we'll make it work. They spent the next hour in that space between intimacy and restraint, touching and kissing and learning each other. Lucien felt layers of shame and fear slowly peeling away, replaced by something warm and hopeful. When they finally stopped, both breathing hard, Tyra curled against Lucien's chest. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For trusting me. For not hiding. For being vulnerable. She tilted her head up to look at him. I know that wasn't easy for you. Nothing about you has been easy, Lucien said, running his fingers through her hair. But you've been worth every difficult moment. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, closer than they'd ever been before. Lucien woke in the middle of the night to find Tyra sitting up in bed, silhouetted against the window. Can't sleep, he asked. Just thinking about tomorrow, about the new life they're going to give us. She looked back at him. What if we hate it? What if we end up in some tiny town where everyone knows everyone and we can't be ourselves? Then we'll adapt. We're both good at that. Are we? Or have we just been surviving? There's a difference. Lucien sat up and wrapped his arms around her from behind. Then we'll learn to do more than survive. We'll learn to live together. Tyra leaned back against him. Promise me something, Lucien. Promise me that no matter where they send us, no matter what names they give us, we'll stay us. The real us, not Jim and whatever generic female name they assign me. Karen, Lucien suggested. Tyra elbowed him. Do I look like a Karen to you? Definitely not a Karen. Maybe a Jennifer. I will divorce you before we even get married if they name me Jennifer. The casual mention of marriage made them both go still. Would you? Tyra asked quietly. Marry me, I mean, if that was an option. Lucien thought about it. A week ago, he'd been a crime boss, convinced he'd die alone. Now, he was holding a woman who'd seen every broken part of him and stayed anyway. Yeah, he said. I would. If you'd have me. Tyra turned in his arms to face him. Ask me again when we're in our new life. When we've actually had time to be a normal couple, when we know this isn't just trauma bonding or adrenaline or whatever psychological explanation there might be for two damaged people falling for each other in the middle of chaos. And if I ask you then my answer might be yes. She kissed him softly. But let's survive witness protection first, then we can talk about marriage. Deal. They went back to sleep, and Lucien dreamed of a future he'd never thought possible. A future where he wasn't Lucien Knox, crime boss with an impossible problem. Where he was just a man loving a woman, building something real. The next morning, FBI agent arrived with news. We've selected your location, she said. You're going to Denver, Colorado. New identities, new backgrounds, clean slate. You leave tomorrow. Lucien looked at Tyra. She looked back at him.